Welcome to our Outturn tasting for September. I'm here with Euan and Julien from the Scotch Malt Whisky Society Spirits team. We've got another fantastic Outturn coming members' way, and we're going to have a wee look at some of the picks that Euan and Julien have selected from the Outturn release. We're going to kick off with the latest in the kind of small batch series. I don't know if I can use the word heresy, but this has always been something that has gone against the idea of a single cask offering. But we've got Dunnage Nougat, Euan.
Easy for you to say.
Well, not that easy. I'll crack it open, see if it helps, if I can have a wee dram. But,
Batch 21, this one is, yeah?
Yeah, tell us about this.
So this one is an exploration of different oak and toasting types. It's a 9-year-old single malt. So in this range, we tend to flip between blended malt and single malt products. So it's all from the same distillery, but there's a rather interesting cask bill for this. Everything started in bourbon hogsheads, and then we moved the whiskey to two different types of oak, American and French oak, which all had different kind of toasting levels. I've had to write it down because it's so complicated.
Right, okay.
So in American oak, we had heavy toast medium char hogsheads, we had heavy toast barriques, and we had M plus toast, just a slightly different toast, barrique as well. So the barriques didn't have any char, just toasting. And then in French oak, we had only the toasting recipes here rather than the heavy toast medium char.
Okay.
So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah.
But the idea is, you get different characteristics from American and French oak.
Yeah.
You've got your lactony, coconutty kind of vanilla from the American. You go more into the realm of spices and maybe dark fruits with the French. You've got more tannins in the French oak as well.
Yeah.
And the toasting just teases out and accentuates different flavours. An unpeated Speyside spirit in here.
Certainly got that kind of toastiness even on the palate, on the nose. Julian, what do you think?
Yeah, you do have a lot of things that come out, like cocoa dust, cocoa powder, things like that.
So that from the French side of things, I would say, is that darker. But then the nougat in the name, you definitely get that kind of almondy and then the lovely chewy kind of,
Yeah, I see what you mean. That's where the nougat comes in. Ooh. Splash of water, gents. I'm going to just...
Yep. So this one is bottled at 50% ABV, but still very much packs a punch. So if you're a fan of adding water to your dram, I think this can take a fair bit.
Yeah.
So it's quite a flexible one.
And Julian, you were writing recently for Unfiltered to kind of recap the small batch series. We're up to 21, but yeah, a huge amount of variety in there and a chance for the spirits team to get a bit more experimental in terms of the kind of whiskey we're releasing.
Yeah, sadly I didn't write about this one, but that'll be for the next batch, I guess. But in this one, what is really interesting is that instead of playing in former contents of a cask, we're going into cask toasting levels and see what you can build purely from that. So it's a very different take on things, and it's also very different in the sense that you need to achieve a balance, and when there's so much oak, it's not really something easy, as Euan can probably confirm. So yeah, this one is striking the balance that we're looking for between the sweetness and the stone fruits in American oak, and then more spicy, darker notes from the French oak.
Yeah. And in terms of a small batch, what does that mean, Euan, in terms of the kind of volumes that you're working with?
So this is about 1,900 bottles. I think we've done as low as 700 for one of the small batches and as high as about 2,500. So it can vary. The casks are not always predetermined to be part of these batches, so sometimes it's looking at what we've got, getting the samples in and mixing and matching, seeing what works well together.
Yeah. And £60 in the UK, so a very affordable, approachable dram. Definitely one to get your nose in. Yeah, it's very, very nice. fantastic. Moving on to the world of single cask, which is what the society is really all about. You had your eye on 1144.
Yeah, it's one I'm quite excited to see. We've started to see casks like this coming through. So this was filled back in 2014 as part of our own fillings program. So we're really just starting to see those coming through at 7, 8 years old now, and it's really rewarding to see that from end to end. Remember sending the casks up to the distillery to be filled. This is also quite an unusual cask type. It's a toasted ex white wine cask.
Okay.
I think we only filled 2 of these in that year, so there's only one more kicking about. It's called Wine and Pine, so it's really lovely, like wood resins in there, quite deep, unctuous, and yeah, for the age, very dark colour, very fruity, rich, almost waxy character to it as well from an unpeated Highland distillate.
Okay. Yeah. Wine and Pine. That's £59 in the EU market, in the UK market. Very nice. Some more expensive offerings this month as well, Julien. A couple of vaults collections and a black label, and also an interesting small batch release coming out in September.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have 2 vaults collection coming out this month. One of them coming from a distillery which is sort of known for its unorthodox approach to distillation.
Yeah. How many times is the distillation?
2.81?
2.7
No.
and something.
At this point, I'm not sure. It's into the decimals.
Yeah, it's into decimals.
But in any case, this is an interesting offering because it spent its entire maturation in sherry casks. 2 casks to be precise, both of them refill casks. And it has gone from... it has spent the 4 last years of its maturation in a refill Spanish oak PX butt, and it had started its maturation in a refill Oloroso American oak butt. So here you have a bit more of a change going towards a bit more of a kick towards spice, resinous flavors that will just emphasize the age of this offering and the nature of a heavy distillate.
Yeah, and how old is this one? This is a good...
This is
32 years old.
Yeah, and as this is already a heavy distillate, the cask that was used previously housed another famously heavy distillate from distillery 44, okay. And this was 44117, I believe.
Okay, very interesting. And what about the other vaults collection? So
the other vaults collection this time is an entirely full maturation in a refill sherry butt as well. This is an Oloroso butt. And it's one of those favorites of mine because, first of all, I like that distillery, but I also like the flavors of the make. And here it's supposed to be an unpeated make or an unpeated spirit. At least this is what it says on the tin. But the flavors are ever so slightly peated and smoky. So you can take a guess as to what happened there. Maybe the casket it was aged in was used previously for a peated distillate, or as some distilleries do, at the end of a production cycle for peated spirit, they did not purge out the heads and tails of distillations of the previous distillations, and this went through the unpeated cycles at the start. It does happen, but your guess is as good as mine here.
Yeah.
Or somebody wrote in the wrong side of the ledger. I mean, it would be like 1990s paperwork,
yeah.
So
yeah, we're going back
anything could happen.
So, gents, we've got 3 flavour pairs, that's what we're calling them, for September. We sometimes hear that the Society releases different casks from the same distillery, but we thought we'd kind of work with that and look at how different whiskies can be from the same distillery. So we've got 3 examples, but we're going to take a look at one that's out in September. 2 bottlings from distillery number 6. We've got 6.68, which is pecked by Funk, and
6.70, which is today's headlines.
Right. So we thought it'd be interesting just to take a wee look and see just how different whiskies can be, even though ostensibly they're from the same distillery, but might have very different characters. So, Julien, that's your 6.68.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that one on the right, I think.
670, 6.68, 670.
There we go.
Right. So, I mean, two different flavour profiles.
Yeah, so first one, what was the number of that? Was .68. Yeah, so 13 years old, and this one has been additionally matured in a barrique that is made from French oak and previously contained Jamaican rum, which was matured in the Cognac region of France before coming to Scotland and being filled with this whiskey. So we've got a nice big batch of these. We've used the casks for our small batch whiskey Baba, and here we see a single cask expression coming out from the same barriques, and I think we've got a few more as well. So you definitely get the kind of blast of rum, but I get sort of gingerbread, but also stem ginger.
It's got a bit of earthiness in there.
Yeah, definitely getting the rum coming through. Good bit of spice in that as well.
Quite estery. Yeah, and sometimes I think rum casks can give a bit too much of an impact, and it tastes more like risky or wum. Whereas this still, this is still unmistakably a Scotch whiskey, just with this little Caribbean twist to it.
Yeah.
It's got a bit of a smouldering spiciness to it. The French oak in there as well.
For sure. Yeah, very nice.
Very minty as well.
But sweet too. Sweet.
But even looking at the colours of these, quite distinctive. 6.70. Yeah, completely different form of maturation in this one.
Make a mojito with that.
Yeah.
The mint really comes out in the palate.
So this is Spanish oak Oloroso, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, I mean, it's a world of difference from the 6.68. That's 6.70. I don't know if you'd be able to identify that as coming from the same distillery. If in a blind tasting, not a chance.
Lots of butterscotch, maybe like Werther's Original, and oak spice as well.
Yeah.
Orange peel maybe.
Cocoa dusting on prunes.
Yeah, so very much in the deep, rich and dry fruits flavour profile. The first one, spicy and sweet, as we kind of identified just from the nosing and tasting, very much in that category.
Yeah, and they are 3 years apart. So another fundamental thing that influences flavour is age. So the Spanish oak one has matured for 3 years longer in general, but I think they're still close enough to get a good comparison on same base spirit, same distillery, and then two completely different directions.
Yeah, absolutely. No, really interesting to put them side by side and say, wow, that's incredible variety from the same distillery. And that's kind of what we're looking at this month. We've got a couple of whiskies from Distillery 41, which are also very distinctive, 41.162 and 41.165. Both sherry maturation, Euan, but again, taking kind of different journeys.
Yeah, and these ones, again, you've got a 17-year-old and a 12-year-old, so a bit of age difference, but really different maturations. The .162 is in an ex-Bodega Oloroso butt. Oloroso butts, having been used to make sherry, have had a lot of the sting taken out of them, so it's just quite a subtle influence, but you get that, if you've been in we have been in plenty of bodegas, that kind of heat, the wine smell, the wood smell, the floor smell, it's got kind of a lot of that character, that funky bodega. And then the 165 is a second fill PX, which is a sherry seasoned hogshead. It's been used once by us to mature another whiskey. And then obviously the Pedro Jimenez is a very different type of sherry, much sweeter. So I mean, another great way to look at what is essentially the same base spirit and flavour from the start, and how it diverges in different casks.
And even talking about sherry maturation, but that can mean very different things depending on what style of sherry you're using. And as you say, is it an ex-bodega cask? Is it a cask that's been conditioned? So yeah, taking again that, as you say, the same base spirit, but heading off into different worlds. And we've got another pairing from Distillery 85. Julien, tell us a wee bit about that.
Yeah, so this is going to be a very interesting one, given that, again, you have the 85.75, which has been bottled at 15 years old, and the other one, which is bottled at 16 years old, which is 85.72. And both of them are going on 3 years or more of extra maturation. So they've spent essentially at least 3 years in their their final cask. And the other thing is that it's usually quite an estery spirit, so you already have quite a bit of fruitiness to it. And this is sort of reinforced in two different ways. You have the PX, which will add quite a bit of darker resinous notes from that type of sherry, which is quite sweet and spicy. Mm-hmm. And on the other side, you have a second fill charred wine barrique, which is more known to give off some red fruit notes rather than very, very dark and dried fruits like the PX. So you have two different approaches to this, and this is sort of reflected as well in the two flavor profiles that you have on the menu here, which is for the PX cask, it's a deep rich and ripe fruits profile, which is not very surprising. And for the other one, so for 8572, you have a spicy and sweet dram, which kind of makes sense given that red wine is part of the descriptors for spicy and sweet whiskies. Yeah. So yeah, we're spot on here on two very different takes on the same distillate.
Okay. Well, interesting with all of these to compare and contrast and dig into one distillery to find out how different these whiskies can end up being. So yeah, really nice selection. I should say also September is obviously gathering month at the Society. We're bringing members together in the UK, the EU, across the world for events. We've got our Guinness World Record attempt happening at the end of the month. So get your tasting packs ready for that if you haven't done so already. And look out for a special series of gathering label bottles. And they came from members that we brought to Leith the start of the year. It was February. You were involved, yeah. Julien, weren't you? And those members selected casks that are going to go out in their own markets, and they've even ended up with their pictures on the label. So some really fantastic gathering bottles coming out this month. But yeah, plenty to choose from our small batch releases to our Vaults collection, Black Label, and these fantastic flavour pairs. So yeah. Thanks, gents, for your time, as always.
Thanks very much.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Excellent.